All right, Marfoogle TV going live in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. I did want to obviously say hello to everybody, a happy new year if you had not joined us before. There was a comment that I saw about Venezuela I want to get to in just a moment. I'll get to that after our first story, but stating that there was less than 5% of our Navy down in Venezuela. I don't know where they got that figure, but I'll go over that here in a second. First of all, refrigerators are empty in Iran. Iran protests spark civilian cries for regime collapse. Now, I have pointed out that I believe that, there's a lot of weirdness going on in the Middle East, of course, going months back. Usually when you see months, prior, suspected CIA landing in Middle East airports, then, you always got to question, like, what the hell's going on here? Who knows? It might be for the greater good. Obviously, if you see post or pre-1979 Iran photos of women and people in general enjoying life in Iran, compared to now, where not a lot of people actually like the Ayatollah there. But right now, there's some crazy stuff happening. In fact, we just covered a leaked letter from the central banks expecting crashes, trying to back up their data because they believe something is about to go down. Now, if something big is about to go down in Iran, this is obviously something that preppers look at because Iran is involved in a massive, massive conflict with Israel. We are backing up Israel. Iran is heavily, heavily involved with Venezuela, heavily involved with Russia, heavily involved with China. So yeah, this is all tied together and something massive is going on right underneath our noses. As protests erupt once more across Iran, voices from inside the country describe the nation not only burdened by economic hardship, but also pushed past a psychological point of no return. Remember, in a lot of places, including Tehran, they're saying that they might need to move the capital because there is no water. They've had so much drought that they literally don't have water. They say that their refrigerators are empty. And my only point is I don't just believe exactly what they're telling us is the situation there because I think that Iran does clamp down on their internet, and I do believe that we have Western media telling us what they want us to hear, right? But again, this is most likely the scenario. And is this an op? Is there a regime change op going on in Iran right now? Is there people within these protests that are yelling, death to this guy, death to Khamenei? And just like prior events that we've seen even here, all it takes is 5 or 10 people going, yeah, let's go break a window. And then the rest are like, yeah, let's break a window too. So you can obviously see where this could be driven a little bit further than it would normally or, naturally go. It says, according to him, both wealth and opportunity are concentrated among the senior officials, influential clerics, their families, and commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. The entire economy has been swallowed, he said, pointing to the ever-expanding economic influence of the IRGC and powerful family ties with the regime. So one thing that they're also pushing, too, is that the money and the wealth are all going to the military. So all of these, when they're talking about, we've got, we're getting together 2,000 missile launchers to launch this huge launch against Israel. None of this says to me that they're so broke that they can't go to war. It says that all of the money is in the military's hands and in the government's hands, and none of it is in the people's hands. Now, that means that you definitely could have a civil revolt, or you could have a revolution there. That's for sure. How much of this is driven, how much of this is natural, and how much of this is a tit for tat from, a war that is obviously connected with multiple other, adversarial countries of ours. Is the U.S. involved in this? Those are my questions. And there's a lot going on there. Inflation, unemployment, and hunger, he have added, have destroyed society, turning street protests into the last resort for worn-out population. Now, remember, they've shut down all government businesses, all everything you can think of that's run by the government, all of the banks right now, everything is closed down right now, hunkering down. because something is going on. They're preparing for something massive, and we don't know what it is yet. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Again, we'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. All right, Temple Maintenance Josh says Mark of the Beast happened in the 70s. Don't get into that subject unless you're extremely well versed. Well, I think that if people didn't get into a subject unless they were extremely well versed, then I don't think anybody would ever be well versed in anything, would there? If you don't have conversations about things, especially those things you're not well versed in, then who would ever advance in anything? Speaking of which, we're going to get into much crazier news tonight. Let's first bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing tonight?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
All right, so somebody made a point that there was only 5% of our Navy that was down in Venezuela right now, and that to me, I wanted to check that myself. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess if you think about the actual numbers of people that are in our Navy, and if you thought of 15,000 soldiers along with 11 warships and everything else, but I was thinking we have 11 carriers, and if one of our carrier strike groups there, that represents roughly 10% of our entire carrier troops. So that wouldn't make sense right there. Not to mention we have about 290 to 300 deployable ships right now. So if you have 11 of them down there, that also is a huge chunk of it as far as in one area. And when you actually follow where the other ships are, it's quite impressive that they have all of this going with the money earmarked to keep them down there. Again, I wanted to ask Grok too, just to see where it put it. And, again, Grok's not the end all be all, but the statement that only 5% of the U.S. Navy is near Venezuela, referring to the waters off its coast, is not accurate. As of early January 2026, the U.S.'s unusually large naval deployment in the Caribbean region under U.S. Southern Command, primarily framed as counter-narcotics operations, but amid heightened tensions. The USS Gerald R. Ford is one of the newest and largest aircraft carrier, around 10 or 11 warships, plus some reports have it at 3 submarines. So you've got full crews in all of those. Not to mention you've got aviation units, we have tankers, you actually have the setups, and the money for their food actually puts it at roughly enough food for about 35,000 troops, not 15,000. So yeah, it's a much bigger number than what they're even telling us, in my opinion. But again, even if it was 5% of our military, we are the country that spends almost $1 trillion in GDP on military. We have the most beefiest, most insane military. When you have that much military somewhere, it is a big deal. So I don't know if somebody was trying to minimize, like, oh, it's not even that big of a deal. It is much of a big deal. In fact, all of our retired and active military folks believe it is one of the biggest deals in the last 20 years. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah. If you do it just on ships and not troops, and you do it just on the total number of ships, not the deployed ones, and you can get in that 5 to 7% range, but that's because we don't deploy everything. So we maintain a large number of ships. Even our carriers aren't all deployed. Only like 4 to 6 out of our 11 are ever deployed at a time. So, but yeah, if you look at the deployment percentage of ships, it's 15 to 20.
And if you look at 290 to 300, you're looking at some of those ships are, I mean, you're talking about that includes tankers, that includes refuelers, that includes this, that includes that, of our fighting warships too. You bring that down, you've got at least 13 or 14% of that out. So that's a huge chunk to be rolling around. Because I thought the same thing. I'm like, how much? What? This was about a couple of weeks ago. I thought of like, how big of a deployment is that really? So I thought the same thing. So it is definitely good to question everything. And then Dex, let's talk about Iran offers to sell advanced weapons systems for crypto.
Yeah, this is one of the first for any nation, and I think it's indicative of the fact that they're having such a hard time dealing with Western financial controls from the sanctions. But they're saying now that Iran is offering to sell its advanced weapon systems, including ballistic missiles, drones, and warships, to foreign governments for cryptocurrency in a bid to use digital assets to bypass the Western financial controls. The Iran Ministry of Defense Export Center, known as Mindex, says it's prepared to negotiate military contracts that allow payment in digital currencies, as well as through barter arrangements and Iranian rials, according to, of course, they would take their money, right? Rials, according to promotional documents and payment terms analyzed by the media now. So the offer introduced during the past year appears to mark one of the first known instances in which a nation state has publicly indicated a willingness to accept crypto as a payment for strategic military hardware. So either they're A, hurting for money, which they may be, and B, having a hard time with all of the sanctions this year and needing another way to funnel that money in and sell off things like Shaheeds and other things that they can probably mass produce rather quickly and make a good buck off of.
Yeah, no, and I'm just obviously, this along with the narrative of everything is going down right now in Iran, is their banks are telling them to freeze up everything and to save their data. It doesn't spell good things for them, at least as far as the narrative goes. And then China's Xi hails nation's technological progress and renews pledge to take back Taiwan. So, again, Xi has been talking a whole lot about where they are and in artificial intelligence, which our own government. We had what was that? The chief software. It was a position that was in our Pentagon that was made for this gentleman, the first of its positions kind. And the guy left, and when he left the Pentagon, he actually wrote a letter basically stating that he didn't want the blood on his hands, that China had surpassed us, that China had passed us in these key areas in artificial intelligence, and said once that you get ahead in an area like that, it is almost impossible to catch back up with them. Since then, the Pentagon has put out white papers in these key areas. There was 37 key areas where China actually got ahead of us. And in those areas, it's extremely hard to catch up because it's always moving forward. They said that the Wednesday, Xi basically hailed his country's technological progress in areas like artificial intelligence and semiconductors, while once again insisting his country would annex self-ruled Taiwan. So there's no doubt in their minds, publicly or privately, that they're taking it. During his New Year's Eve address, broadcast Wednesday evening by state media, Xi praised the country's advancements in key sectors, including military tech and space exploration. Images ranging from humanoid robots performing kung fu to new hydropower projects rolled on the screen as he spoke. We sought to energize high-quality development through innovation, Xi said, while thanking Chinese people for contributing to the country's economic growth over the past 5 years. Now, one thing is I just pointed out a couple weeks ago, it is being pointed out a million times over on Twitter. In fact, I'll just pull this up real quick. Over on Twitter, if you actually type in, let's see here, China and advanced, right? There's like these just like cookie cutter messages, right? This is Jackson Hinkle, and you'll get Jackson Hinkle because he posts like 3 times a day saying China is the most advanced country on earth. Communism works. Like, communism works. Yay. And you'll see a million of these posts, and they'll be like, if communism doesn't work, why do they have so many LED lights in their downtown sector? If communism doesn't work, why do they have such cool drones? If communism doesn't work, why do they have these humanoid robots doing kung fu to, I think I'm turning Japanese? Like, I don't understand the logic of like showing cool downtown areas and being like, it works. Look at this. Like our like gauge of like how well a country's doing is how many LED lights they have. I'm sorry, but if you took like streamers and go, oh, they've got a bunch of LED lights in the back of them, they're successful. It's not actually a gauge of how successful they're doing, right? I could put 10 more. I'm not going to be any more successful than I am now, right? But they seem to think that this is a gauge to judge a whole society and a whole country by. They're like, oh yeah, do you see this? They've got like projection screens on their skyscrapers. Okay, but can you hold up a piece of paper saying I disagree with the government? No. Sounds kind of dumb to me, but whatever. Again, just my opinion. It says they have AI autonomous delivery. Yeah, they've got all this cool tech, right? They also don't have any bureaucracy. They can skip the line. There's some things in China that does work. They've got trains that are floating upside down. No, it looks like futuristic city in a lot of these places. But again, does that mean that it's a great place and a great kind of government to live under? I'm sorry. I much rather have, no feelings of like, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to end up in jail, which again, the U.S. is getting that bad too. Dex, do you know what I mean? It's like these basically Xi is saying like he's taken this island. My point is they've been pushing this narrative really hard for the last month, and I feel this in this New Year's address. It's even more like, look at the technological advancements. They're basically positioning themselves and telling the world like, we're number one. We're all about peace. We're all about the environment. We're all about technology. We're all about this. We're all about that. We are the future, and that's the narrative that they're pushing to everybody. And scary enough, some people believe it. And they want it to happen.
Oh, they have those cell phone farms. They have those million person armies of social media influencers that are all over. So yeah, I would expect them in times of not creating false narratives that are going negatively against America to be doing positive things for China. So yeah,
it says that they're the most advanced country in on Earth, or are they just the most decorated? Like, I mean, really think about it. They spent a ton of their money on this Chengdu station to make it look like something out of, some space sci-fi movie. Does it work better? Sadly, I think some of their systems do, because if you just don't do what they say, then you get your social credit marked and then you can't enter. Think about this. Your social credit score drops too low there. You can't enter this station. Think about that. He doesn't mention that, right? This is a metro station, right? If your social credit score goes too low, you can't use public transport. Where's the mention of that? Just saying. All right, and then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield if you haven't already. This is a protection against not only an EMP from any kind of adversary, but also against a CME from the sun or a Carrington level event. Go get yourself one at 25% off. The end of the year sale is extended, so make sure to go get that while you can. I don't think it's going to be extended for much longer because they extended it past the 1st. There was a lot of requests for them to do so. Again, marfugglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. Again, that is the device that can protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, gas, and solar. In the case of the Flex Tactical, and obviously all of the energy products have a different thing that can go in them. All right, and then of course make sure to go check out, they have a Starlink version as well, which we'll actually be talking about Starlink here in just a second. Pretty crazy. But first, Dex, let's talk about the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, and they're apparently resuming the search.
Yeah. I mean, get this. We thought this thing may have been put to bed a long time ago. I mean, of course, it's all over social media when it comes to conspiracies, right? And everybody's got a theory, and one person carries the torch pretty strongly for one of those. But look, this was over a decade ago that Flight 370, vanished without a trace, sparking one of aviation's most baffling mysteries. And of course, everybody's got a theory on it. But despite years of multinational searches, investigators still do not know exactly what happened to the plane or its 239 passengers and crews. On Wednesday, the Malaysian government said a vessel began a new search operation for the missing plane. So here we go. They're searching yet again. They're reigniting hopes that the aircraft might finally be found. A previous massive search in the southern Indian Ocean, where the jet was believed to have gone down, turned up almost nothing apart from a few small fragments that washed ashore. No bodies or large wreckage have ever been recovered. So that's the news. The news is that they're starting a new search. Of course, the rest of this talks about the history of that event, which we've covered for a long time here, and you probably are well aware of it. But what do you think? Is this maybe an opportunity to quell the latest rounds of conspiracies that are out there? Are they going to come back and say, look, we found something, here it is, now everybody can,
why would they care though?
Stop talking about it, or are they really searching for it? Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, like, because some of the theories are that it went through a portal and then it could like pop back up or at some point. And that was kind of weird when I saw this. I was thinking, man, because there was that whole theory that it went through a portal and that it would be brought back. Or that aliens took it. Remember, there was the theory in the video of like the 3 dots supposedly like having it disappear. And then what if it was dropped back off? What if it was straight out of a sci-fi show and they ended up popping up back and landing at an airport, asking for clearance, and all of the passengers it was just like the day they took off?
That would be creepy.
It would be crazy.
The other theory too that's out there is that it was a state weapon that has never been seen before, never been used before. That was one of the first uses of it. So some have suggested it's some sort of weaponized capability that can create that portal, if you want to call it that, or make something completely vanish, or maybe make it reappear at a specific destination where they can make it vanish.
What if exactly 10 years later it just pops back out and, their watches still say the same time it was when they went through it? I don't know what's going on with this, but again, I don't think they care about the conspiracies about it, because really they've calmed down a lot. You don't hear too many people even talking about it anymore. There's those groups that will never stop talking about it, especially friends and families of the people that went missing. They'll never forget it. I mean, if my family member went missing on it, I would still be looking. I would be like, some of those people are actually out on the sea looking themselves. Some of them comb the beaches every day, still to this day. So yeah, I mean, think about if one of your family members or your daughter or your dad or somebody, just went missing and no answers from anybody. And it's a plane like this, so many people just go missing in 1 second. Salty Cajun, thank you. Not only a 6-month member, but just gifted 5 badges to other Foogle family members. Thank you so much. And I appreciate that, Salty Cajun. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. Thank you. And I do want to say thank you as well. Let's see here. There was a few people that ended up doing PayPal. I'll try to pull that up by the end. Thank you so much for the PayPal. I can't say thank you enough. You don't have to support those that do. I really, really appreciate you. So thank you. I'll pull that up at the end of the show. And then Salty Cajun can't thank you enough. Thank you for gifting out 5 badges. And again, that gifts them out to other Foogle family members. So thank you. All right, let's go into the next story, which is, as an engineer, he's found a way to overcome Earth's gravity. Now, Dex, geek out on this, because this is really kind of crazy.
Well, yeah. So look, so the story starts off talking about an older version of this back in 2001, where British electrical engineer Roger Scheuer had invented or said he invented the impossible by creating what was called the EM drive. But then it turned out to be bunk, like it never actually happened. But they are what is being said is that this not based in physics dream of a propellantless machine didn't die with the M drive. Instead, a new challenger approaches, and this one has a former NASA scientist backing it up. So we've got NASA Charles Buhler, who used to work for NASA now, obviously doesn't because he's at this startup, has established an electrostatic and surface physics laboratory at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, a very important lab that basically ensures rockets don't explode, is now the co-founder of the space company Exodus Propulsion Technologies. And Bowler told the media that they were talking to at the time that they've created a drive powered by a new force that's outside our current known laws of physics, giving propellantless drive enough boost to overcome gravity. Now, that's a big deal because it means they can propel against gravity, so they can get elevation, and they're doing it with propellantless. They're doing it in a way that doesn't require fuel, like a rocket.
Is this what the guy was talking about?
Else.
Gravitic propulsion?
So who knows? But where I look at this, and again, this has to be proven that it's true, and just like the EM drive came out and it was debunked, so to speak. But I kind of go down this path that a lot of times these newer technologies that we may either already have knowledge of, we have to slowly introduce them at the right time into the market. And we do that through things like DARPA and other groups, and maybe even through NASA in this case. Is this potentially something like that? And they have told us that in this whole notion of disclosure that's supposed to be coming, the people that are really big on the disclosure side that are talking in Congress and, doing big blockbuster movies around it, are all saying that we have propulsion capability that comes from another world, that we've been reverse engineering it. And if we would be bringing that about, then how would we do it? Would we roll it down out on the front lawn of the White House and say, hello, folks, take a look, here it is? Or would they say, hey, some guy invented this crazy tech and look what he's doing. He's found a way to beat gravity with the propellantless propulsion system. So this could very well be the cover story to advance our propulsion systems, and or it could be bunk. Who knows? It may come out and it's absolutely nothing.
Jennifer Chamberlain says yes, all the movies are predictive programming, and I actually agree with that a lot. Like, so first of all, a lot of the things that we creatively thought of ended up being true. If you look at all of the older movies, they ended up they did come true. And that's because pretty much anything we could think of, people don't stop until they can make it a reality, especially sci-fi. If you think about these scientists and what they want to do, they don't really need to be creative to think of new ideas, because there's sci-fi out there to think, hey, like, how do we produce food out of nowhere? Right now, they're making, they're 3D printing chicken nuggets. At some point, there'll be a materializer, right? Or there'll be something that will just generate food out of nowhere. These things are all worked on because they saw them in sci-fi. Half of the stuff in Back to the Future, these are things that obviously were ahead of their time. Obviously, we thought we'd be flying cars by now, but we're not. But there are a lot of things like cell phones and other, smart watches and things that, just people saw way, way before. And it's kind of crazy to think that anything like this, even if we do come up with some sort of new discovery like gasless vehicles or vehicles that can run on water, it's like there's always going to be a government agency that's going to be like, hey, we're tied in with these oil companies and we're not going to let anything fly until we're ready to let it fly. And if somebody wants to try to skip permissions, they're not going to live to see tomorrow. I think that this is, all tied into big money. So if these guys actually have some sort of, new propulsion system, we're never going to see it, or we won't see it until DARPA, like Dex said, sees it, or the government sees it 10 years before we do. This is why we, have always said that the government probably has technology that's 30 years ahead of us, because they will get it from somebody like, these guys. These guys will all end up accidentally driving off a cliff and accidentally taking their own lives from behind. And, the company will disappear and the articles will dissolve. And then all of a sudden you have military flights going over and using a new force to drive them. And rumors of gravitic propulsion going over the waters. Who knows?
When it does come time to release it to the public, they would do it the same way as this. They would introduce it as an invention, right?
Yep, exactly. Delta Wildman, thank you so much. Says, keep your head on a swivel, everyone. 2026 will be a crazy year. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you. One Ed Cooksey says, thanks for all you do. Installed my EMP shield on my truck this week. Quick question, is the biggest threat abroad or within? I think that's a duel. Both. Think about it. Think about the last 4 years. My opinion is that it's actually within. Actually,
the abroad has infiltrated within, right?
Yeah, the abroad is here, and the abroad has paid certain people here, in my opinion. But again, Dex, what's your thought on that?
I mean, look, I think influence from at the highest forms, as well as just pouring in tons of people into our country, have opened up opportunities for our adversaries, and we are as much at threat inside our country as we are outside our country.
Yep, I agree. And then Delta Wildman, thank you. And then, of course, thank you, Kate Brown, quadruple 7. Thank you. Yeah, I said Red Dawn won't be paratroopers coming in. It will be people tapping you on the shoulder. And then Starlink plans to lower satellite orbit. Dex, will you cover this real quick? I got to change the battery.
Certainly. This is crazy. So Starlink will begin reconfiguring all of its satellite constellations by lowering all of the satellites orbiting around 550 kilometers or 342 miles to 480 kilometers, which is obviously less than that, over the course of 2026. So they are bringing them all down. The company is looking to increase space safety by lowering the satellite orbit, they're saying. This comes, as Starlink said in December, one of its satellites experienced an anomaly in space. Now, I'll remind you what the term anomaly basically means: an explosion. Something went wrong, okay? When the crew cabin that they were testing burst into flames, the term was, we had an anomaly, okay? So it created a small amount, as they call it, debris.
A slight anomaly.
Satellite. Yeah. It's a small amount of debris because it's a small satellite, but and cutting off communication with the spacecraft at 418 kilometers in altitude, a rare kinetic accident in orbit, they said, a kinetic accident. So in other words, it ran into something. It had a collision, either with another satellite, with some other debris. It caused a problem. And as we know, there's this cascading effect that can happen. And it may be that they're seeing that the location they're in has already been littered from the debris that they need to move down. He's got that 10,000 satellites up there, or however many it is now. It's a lot. I don't think they're all in the same orbit. So if all of a sudden that level of altitude becomes polluted, he could risk losing a lot, and a lot quickly. So there could be something going on there. There could be other reasons why they're doing this, but they just call it space safety right now.
Yeah. So if you're not catching what Dex is throwing here, there was an anomaly. Something causes a cascading event. It keeps hit one after another. Now they're dropping down like planes fly at 35,000 feet going this way. They do this so they don't hit each other. And then the next lane is 1,000 feet above it. So it'll be 35,000, then 36,000, then 37,000. And for some reason, I just thought of my kid saying 6'7", 6'7". But again, there's lanes in supposedly in what they're doing with the satellites too. So if that whole ring is just debris, that would be a reason why they would drop it down lower. One other thought that I had is that they are dropping these lower because they're very soon going to be announced as one of the Golden Dome, a chunk or a part of the Golden Dome system. So if you didn't know, Starlink, 1 out of every 4 had these sensors, hypersonic detection sensors put into them. From the get-go, and it's changed over the. Everybody thinks it's just for internet. I think it was a defensive measure. I think it's a military tool. I think Starlink is probably surveillance, and it's probably detection for hypersonic speed objects. And I should say it is, right, because every 1 in 4 has the ability to detect hypersonic objects. And I've always wondered, and I said this years ago, that what if this is actually to detect things coming from outside of our solar system too, an asteroid coming in, or a missile launch from down below. So we might actually see that this in the next couple of years, before this president gets out, no matter how many people think that him and Elon and the president are fighting, that his company might be the top, chunk of satellites that's working with the Golden Dome system. And the reason why I think that is because they're on a time frame crunch, right? And if they can do whatever they can to these to the Starlinks that are already up there and kind of convert them into something else, then they would do that to make it work for this system. They need a grid around the entire planet for the Golden Dome system to work. And for these lowering, they might also be lowering, and this is just my guess, we might see articles in the future saying that Starlink is now part of Golden Dome, that they lowered these because they needed to have better, they're closer to the Earth so they can spot things better. I don't know. But I just have a feeling that this is because of a defensive measure, like something is going on right now. But what do you guys think? Does that sound crazy? Again, people said it was crazy that I said that this was a military defensive measure, that they were putting these satellites up there. They said, no, it's just for internet. Oh, everything is exaggerated. And then they came out with the news that 1 in every 4 had hypersonic detection, right? So, again, I think it's maybe a military use too. Or it could be, as well, what Dex said, is some disaster just happened right above our heads. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it more dense, right? If you think about, if 2 things are 500 miles away and all of a sudden they're 400 miles away, they're now closer to each other as much as they are closer to the Earth. So now all of a sudden your grid becomes more dense, and maybe that for a measure of, detection and or, connectivity can change things. I don't know how much improvement on that density happens, but that is something when you're dealing with tens of thousands and the more that are going up, how that'll play into it. But yeah, there's got to be something here besides just space safety, unless that whole latitude or that whole
we don't
altitude
want things
littered.
Coming down on us, right? We don't want the Golden Dome to turn into a golden shower. That's for sure.
No, we'll save that for Russia, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or R. Kelly, whichever comes first. All right, moving on very quickly and unawkwardly. Neuralink plans high-volume brain implant production by 2026, Musk says. So this, again, some consider this the mark of the beast. Now, I'm not well-versed in the mark of the beast other than what I know, that you would not be able to buy or sell. I actually don't think that Neuralink would be so much that, but at the same point, Dex, we've had conversations on this show about how this actually could turn into the mark of the beast, where all of a sudden everybody needs to get a Neuralink to be a part of a new system, which seems so just out of this world right now. But in the future, Minority Report, I think isn't that the one with Tom Cruise? Minority Report was a good example, like where you're walking through a mall and everything is personalized to you. That was way ahead of its time. That was predictive programming. Now that's essentially our online experience, right? No matter where you go, even if you drive somewhere, your phone is telling the companies where you are, and they're personalizing these advertisements to you. They're saying like, "Hey, Adam, you love, Stream Decks. Would you like to get a Stream Deck? You're 1 block away from one." We didn't think that was even possible 25 years ago. Now it is something that is not only happening, it's happening on a minute-to-minute basis wherever you go. What did you think about this whole Neuralink thing? Like, they're basically going into high gear and mass producing this thing.
Yeah, this is okay. So when you look at technology comes out, and then it typically has exponential growth if it's something, in a new market that is highly valuable, highly capable, and is rife with opportunity to do lots of great things, like AI, like the internet when it came around, like computers when they were invented, like even like televisions when they first came out, right? Or the telephone. Everything just exponentially grew quickly. This is an infant product. At the end of the day, Neuralink is an infant product. I don't think this actual chip is the mark of the beast, but we have talked about this before, and I wholeheartedly agree that the future of the world is going to be one where humans are integrated with the digital world in a seamless way. And we may not like it at this moment. Like right now, talking about it really bothers me. But, it's going to come about that way, because what's going to happen is if you are not plugging in and with whatever technology has evolved from this Neuralink or the next company that makes it to tap into this power of integrating yourself digitally with all of the world's information and the computing power, then you are going to be a lesser class. Doesn't mean that you can't stay there as a lesser class, but what's going to happen is everybody's going to be like, no, I don't want to be a lesser class. I want to be a superhuman like all these other people. And when the rest of the world around you is all superhuman, then everyone's going to do it. Otherwise you can't compete. You can't have a job. You can't make money. You can't, do XYZ. And it's sort of like, I look at, there's been examples of it in movies like The Matrix, where they downloaded, the ability to learn Kung Fu in 5 minutes in your brain, right? That is not out of the realm of possibility. And when that technology is here, as much as we may look at it and go, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like this quadriplegic can now, communicate and play games that he couldn't play before because he can't move his arms and his legs, but his brain still works. And all of that is a great thing. Or now I can all of a sudden learn Kung Fu because I need to know Kung Fu or whatever that may be, right? And I just push a button and it's downloaded into my brain. What we have to understand is when we're all connected like that in a digital world, it makes something like a social credit system or governmental control of the network, the digital information, the rules that govern you and how all that works, so much more powerful. And that, to me, is where we get into this idea of the mark of the beast. And if you get to a world that we've advanced to that type of world, I think we're marching there very quickly. Is it going to be next year with this? I don't think it's just Neuralink that's doing it, but this is the stair step. And the fact that they are now going to be mass producing this means it will exponentially grow from there, not only with Neuralink, but with their competitors.
And that sounds like much more of a likely scenario than one of my side theories, which is, and this is a totally crazy one, but you guys are here for some crazy theories, that possibly everything that Elon Musk does is possibly preparing for a end of the world scenario. He has talked about end of the world scenarios in so many different ways. He even has talked about, pole shift. That MIT scientist that just got taken out, it was even mentioned on the Christmas Day episode of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan said, what if that guy, that MIT scientist, was taken out because he was trying to warn us about a magnetic pole shift? Which, if you don't know, magnetic pole shift, if the world goes like this all of a sudden and the oceans and everything stay where they're at, then we'll have tsunamis all over the world. It will be a great flood. It could be something out of every horror movie. There's been lots of predictive programming, like the movie The Great Flood, the asteroid causing a great tsunami movies that have been coming out. It's crazy.
Geographic bullshit.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
But
not magnetic.
correct. But some say that they're both tied together. That there's one without the other. So that it would cause all sorts of weather phenomena that we've never seen before, and that it's just it's unpredictable. But so say something like that, right? Well, I also think, what if an asteroid is coming towards Earth, that he is building this grid around the planet to try to detect or do something like that. He's trying to get to Mars or to the moon to take the rich and elite off the planet. He's digging holes with the boring company. He's digging these tunnels and digging these underground bases. People have been hearing explosions, having actual seismic activity under the house. Their whole house shakes, but there's no seismic activity. There's been earthquakes that have, this is recent, earthquakes that have been popping up on USGS and then being deleted. That's kind of freaky, right? There's all of these things, and then the mysterious booms, right? The booms all over the country and all over the world. These are well documented, and nobody knows what they are. I'm thinking, what if they're underground, making these huge underground bases, right? And the Boring Company, that's its specialty. Everything Elon is tied to is something like that. So Neuralink, side theory that you would have Neuralink embedded into people's heads for a long flight if we ever had to do something like the Don't Look Up. And again, this all falls into the general theme of today, Don't Look Up. If you had to do a 4-year flight or something to a Goldilocks planet, or a 10-year, a 12-year flight in cryogenic stasis or something, that you would have Neuralink basically having your brain and everything continuing to flow, have things uploaded into your brain, whatever. You would first need robots to go to that planet first and set up for you. And you would need at least enough smarts, AI, to run these and swarm robots to be able to build whatever you need before. Because think about it, you don't need humans to go there and set up base camp. You would have robots do that. And you would need robots that are good enough that they could fold your laundry, that's for sure. But you would send the robots first to colonize a planet, deal with the harsh planet, scenarios that are going to happen. Like if in Mars, there's going to be tornadoes pulling robots off the surface. They would set up base camp. They would start the process. And then humans would go there, probably Neuralinked up, so they could be partnered up with these robots. And then you would also have a system set up for the people that are left behind. They would go down in these bunkers. So that's a really crazy side theory. But again, when you think of the weird stuff that has happened with the asteroid kind of side of things, with DART, double asteroid redirection test, with HAMMER, hypervelocity and asteroid mitigation emergency vehicles, with Hayabusa, with all of these different missions that have happened. And it's really weird to see us doing all of these if there's no purpose. The Sunspot Observatory closing down, and they give us a story that this guy had kitty files on his computer, so they had to close down the whole thing for 11 days, close down the post office that may or may not have had information set up. And then this MIT scientist that gets freaking taken out. It's like all of these different things spells out maybe these guys are in the knowledge of something's happening to our planet. Again, predictive programming in Deep Impact. I think that's probably the best scenario for that, right? Where they know of something that's coming and they don't tell us until last minute, because they would want us to be worker bees and to continue working. So that's my crazy side theory as far as Elon and Neuralink and Boring Company, SpaceX, and every other thing. And it would be so crazy if that was the truth. But the craziest part is that he shares that our planet is doomed. He regularly puts out these hints that there's going to be either a pole shift or that there's going to be some sort of asteroid hitting. If you don't know this, he has posted several memes and different things basically saying that, an asteroid's going to hit us and that, we're all doomed and that our best chance of survival is to go off planet. It's like, how do people not kind of put that together? It's like he happens to be an end of the worlder doomer. At the same time, he's developing all of these systems, and you think that they're just all for, regular purposes. I don't know. I really, really, really makes me wonder. Have you guys ever wondered this? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out Jace. If you don't have antibiotics on hand, antibiotics have come in key, I'm sure, in many of your lives. When something happens, if you don't have a Z-Pack or something like that, and you have something, obviously you have to go to the hospital or go to the ER. Well, in the case where you don't have an ER, or if you can't reach the ER, or if there are no pharmacies, or the pharmacies are all down, this is a scenario that we don't really think of. But it has happened in so many different natural disasters, it's not even funny. And again, this doesn't have to be a natural disaster. It could literally be you are stuck somewhere and you need antibiotics. This is where you can get a kit sent directly to your door discreetly that you can have on you at all times. That way, you can actually have these on your person. You can have them in your car, you can have them at work, you can have them at home. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll not only save money, but you'll also help our channel out at the same time. We are in most need of people sharing us out. Honestly, it's been hard to even run this show for the last couple of years. So if you guys can, more than anything, share us out. When you get this, go through us or don't go through us. But I would highly recommend having antibiotics, having food and water, having a basic plan with your friends and family. Know where you are going to go to meet these, whatever people you're going to meet up with in a disaster, and understand that you only have so many hours after things really go wrong. Our scenario is that if your car doesn't start, your phone doesn't work, and your power is out, then you might need to figure out if you're staying or going. And really quick, because you're not going to have much time to be able to decide. Many people are going to be super confused when everything happens. I don't think much of my audience is, but when it does go down, I would highly recommend having these things on hand, because obviously they are going to be extremely valuable when they're not available. Quick telehealth appointment with a board-certified doctor, and then you're done. Boom. Through your cell phone, tablet, or other device. All right, and then Dex, videos released in EpiPen's files raise fresh questions about the jail footage. So Dex, after looking through this, I mean, it basically looks like it contradicts the official narrative, which, no surprise there. Also, it basically says that there are all of these other camera angles that they didn't talk about. The other camera angles put into question, what the hell they were saying with this, that these cameras weren't there, and this, it brings up the fact that there were malfunctioning hard drives in just the area that he was in at the time. I mean, this was such a hit.
But then they found cameras that weren't, okay? And then they also had cameras that had footage on them that was older than 30 days old at the time. But they said, hey, the cameras are configured to only record video that's 30 days old. So there's all sorts of inconsistencies. Now, the reason this is coming out is because they signed that law that says, hey, we got to release everything. So they're just basically taking everything and dumping it out. And now all of a sudden you're getting all sorts of, video footage that was at one point held behind closed doors that is now being analyzed, and people are going, okay, wait a minute. It's not like they see the smoking gun, so to speak, but they're saying, look, you said these things, like we couldn't see definitively the entrance of his cell because the only camera available had a side angle shot of the staircase. So that was good enough. And we knew that nobody went up and down into that area to go to his cell during that time when he perished. So that was there. And all the other cameras didn't work. But now all of a sudden, oh yeah, we actually do have footage from other angles. Oh yeah, we do have cameras that were working, even though we said they weren't.
Yeah, it just, the whole thing is super, super fishy. And it brings into point that they had just hundreds and hundreds of different angles, different videos. They had videos that didn't make any sense, like the J tier video. It has no explanation. It doesn't make sense. Like, why is it there? This thing from the get-go was a hit, in my opinion, and they don't have absolute proof that it wasn't. The fact that the hard drives malfunctioned is just such a bunch of bull. The whole thing is just so smelly. And it really makes you, it just reminds you of who was involved in this. The highest powered people in the world. The kind of people that could have this kind of thing happen in a jail like this. Inquiring Minds, thank you, says, keep up the good works, guys. Thank you. Hey, thank you, and thank you so much for the support. And I appreciate Angela Perfelli, Funny Doers International, D. Griffin, and everybody else that ended up saying thank you, including our wonderful mods, Chance, Paladin, and Bobby Sue. And then Trump and the top Iranian officials exchanged threats over protests roiling Iran. Dex, do you want to talk about that and the whole situation there?
So, look, this is a big deal. We talked about Iran over on the news channel. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning of this show. What may be actually happening there is the beginnings of the potential of a revolution, if you want to call it that, or an overthrow of the government. Obviously, it's just protesting right now of a lot of people that are upset with the economics, at least as they're telling us. But what has typically not happened in the past is most presidents don't get involved. Like, they may get involved indirectly, like with CIA, but they don't come out and say, like when this happened during Obama's term, he didn't come out and actually say, we're going to support you, because they don't want necessarily to have that influence tied directly back to America. Well, that's not what happened here. Our current president came out and told specifically that we are going to support those people, and said U.S. President Trump told Iranian officials in exchange of dueling threats Friday, widening during the protests sweeping across the republic, that basically if they hurt anybody that is peacefully protesting, that we're going to strike them. We're going to come take it upon our own action. So Trump initially wrote on his Truth Social platform, warning that Iran, if it violently takes out peaceful protesters, the United States will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. That is coming from the U.S. president. So that is a huge endorsement to those protesters. It's going to incentivize them to move forward. And that's something that U.S. presidents haven't typically done publicly in the past when it comes to Iran or situations like this. So, of course, shortly after, the Ale Larijanalange, former parliamentary speaker who serves as the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, alleged on the social platform X that Israel and the U.S. were stoking the demonstrations, which he's probably not wrong in saying that. He offered no evidence to support the allegations, which the Iranian officials have repeatedly made. He said Trump should know that intervention by the U.S. in the domestic problems corresponds to the chaos in the entire region and the destruction of the U.S. interests. He says the people of the U.S. should know that Trump began the adventurism and they should take care of their own soldiers. Basically, an underlying threat to the U.S. soldiers in the region there, as people are inferring from his statement.
Yeah, so, I mean, we just haven't seen something like that. Him literally backing up and saying, hey, if you guys go after your protesters, we're going to go after you. I mean, it's unheard of. So, yeah, what is actually going to happen with this? We're not sure exactly what is going to go down, but we're going to follow it. All right, and then could get stupid quick. Patrix, yeah, that's exactly where it could go. Thank you, guys. Make sure to go check out Harvest Right if you haven't already. Marfooglenews.com/freeze. The last of that Black Friday and holiday savings, up to $1,000 off on those machines. If you want to get into freeze drying your own food, it's awesome. It is absolutely one of the coolest hobbies out there, and you can preserve almost everything you get. Obviously, food is expensive right now, so don't waste it. You can freeze dry it instead of letting it go to waste. Marfooglenews.com/freeze. Again, you just need that link and you'll get the savings. All right. Dex, thank you so much for your service today. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
I wanted to shout out. Can we pull up? I was gonna shout out. There was a couple of PayPal's. I was gonna pull up that PayPal page and thank everybody. Thank you guys. And I can't remember the names. I want to say it was Daryl and Linda, but I'm not too sure. But I did want to thank you guys and give you a formal thanks. And we're gonna be hopping over to Marfoogle Jams, and we're going to be thanking for absolutely sure One Ed Cooksey. Thank you. I believe you're the top supporter tonight. And I believe Delta Wildman, Inquiring Minds, Kate Brown, Angelo Perfelli, Rosemary Griffin, J Pass, Fingerman, Sean, and Kevin. Thank you. D Griffin, WIS Jen, Bobby Sue, Dr. Huru, Chance Paladin, of course, Mike. Of course, Stephen McMahon, thank you so much. Cassandra Goss and Briar Patch, Michigan Lifestyle, Salty Cajun, Donna Honey, Carol, thank you so much, and Deborah Lanning. Everybody that joined us for tonight's show, thank you for everybody that comes every single night. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. All right, and then we're going to be hopping over to Jams. I'll be pulling that up over there. So thank you, and thank you. For your support. Thank you both just sharing us out and any financial support you guys help us with. I appreciate it. Thank you. God bless. And Happy New Year's. All right, you guys, it is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It is a shoutro. Bum 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 bum.